Now, friends, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a wonderful personality, Shri Sudhanshu Pandey ji. He is the Food Secretary of Government of India. Sudhanshu Pandey ji, as Food Secretary, has brought a whiff of fresh air in the working of the Food Ministry. We have been dealing with Food Ministry for a very long time, but interacting with Pandey ji is a different experience altogether. COVID restrictions have ensured that we have never met him physically, but he has ensured interactions continue via Zoom and WebEx. We have recently seen him in action in getting the bottlenecks removed in import clearance by proactively getting FSSAI and customs on the same platform. Earlier, it was taking about 10 to 12 days for import cargoes to be cleared, and this period is now down to 2 to 3 days, shortening the problems of the supply chain. And in fact, in these times when vegetable oil prices were going through the roof, this has gone a long way in smoothing the supply chain. Further, the recent anomaly pertaining to tariff revision on palm and soya oil was also rectified at lightning speed. I have never seen Government of India changing a notification within less than 24 hours of its issuance. Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to you all. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. But today morning we had a very bad start, and I was in double minds whether I would be able to join or not. One of my very dear colleague, Mr. Guru Mahapatra, who was Secretary DPIIT, he passed away, and so therefore we are condoling his death. We had known each other for a long time, including his family. So this is really very difficult time that each one of us is going through. Notwithstanding what is happening due to COVID, life has to go on, and therefore I decided that the commitment that has been made to the industry, that should stay, and that is why I am able to join. All of you, and especially my colleague Shubha Thakur, who is very proactive, a very sincere, committed professional civil servant, has already highlighted as to what our government is trying to do. India is a large country with large diversity in terms of agroclimatic zones, cultural preferences, food preferences, and also the income differences, inequities. And therefore, ensuring food security to every section of society poses a very different kind of challenge in India. I recall my days in the Ministry of Commerce, where we could see even countries like Japan able to defend a duty of 700% on their sticky rice, a particular variety of rice that they consume, and they very jealously protect that rice in their country, and they have negotiated a very high duty of about 700%. Because they want to preserve that, they want to grow that, they want to support their farmers. Likewise, we have also seen that countries like United States of America, European Union, they also provide large support to their farmers through decoupled income support. Those supports are production neutral. However, those countries have also gone through a stage where in the beginning, the incentive given to farmer was also production linked. We have a very disproportionate mass of land to our population size, and therefore we have a unique problem. And therefore the opportunity cost for everything that we decide to do has to be very carefully weighed. Groundnut certainly is a wonder nut, and it is also considered a poor man, uh, almond, and cashew nut. And it used to be very affordable. Lately, its prices have gone up, which is very natural in a growing economy. Its contribution to, as many speakers told, to the Indian edible oil sector is also very high. But this is one such crop which almost can be grown in every state of India. And therefore, potential to harness it fully is huge. We have seen that average productivity within India is almost 2.5 to 3 times in Tamil Nadu. And therefore, simply by ensuring that the gains of productivity, higher productivity, are equally distributed across the states, perhaps we can double the production of groundnut very easily. It is very easily possible to do. In order to ensure that we produce enough groundnut, it is equally important that it's not only the area-led growth. As I said, in a country like India, opportunity cost will always decide finally which crop is grown on which land. If the opportunity cost is not favorable, something else will displace that crop and another crop will come, or another economic activity would come. And therefore, while the area-led growth is important, it is yield which is going to play a very critical role, because ultimately, if the yield is higher, then the return on the investment and the utilization of land will be low. Return on investment will be high. And therefore, perhaps a time has come, while government has been making investment in agriculture, it is time for the private sector also to a very proactive role in developing right kind of seeds, promoting those seeds, and holding farmers, investing in the infrastructure, agriculture infrastructure for cash crops like groundnut, so that its production grows faster, as my colleague said, than what it is growing. Our population expects that their growing needs, both on the food security as well as the taste differences that are gradually developing, they are also catered to. Groundnut is one such product which has vast variety of basically value-added products coming from it. And therefore, pressure on oil is also going to be high. Means you can consume peanut as it is, you can eat fried, dried, coated, peanut butter. Large range of new products are coming. Now cookies are also coming. If you see in the West, then you suddenly find Nutri-Bar is also coming, made from peanut. So whole range of new products are coming. So therefore, pressure on the groundnut per se is going to be high. And therefore, unless a sufficient quantity is also available for oil extraction, its contribution to the edible oil sector will not grow as fast as we would like it to grow. And therefore, increasing absolute production of the groundnut is critically important. India has a very strong diaspora. We have over 3 crore Indians settled abroad. And whether it is groundnut, pea-related products, there is a demand for them. And therefore, as Mr. Jain said, exporting to not only foreigners, but to our diaspora abroad becomes critically important. A lot of Indian products go abroad because there is a demand of Indians settled abroad. And now a large number of Indian students are also going out. And you have seen that all these factors are pushing exports of various products from India. As you know, that even in the milk and milk related products, while we are not an exporter despite being the largest producer, but because of the diaspora, even Amul cheese gets exported because that is bought by cottage cheese, and the Amul cheese gets bought over by Indians settled there. So the point that I'm trying to make is that the value-added products will continue to have pressure on the groundnut, and therefore surplus quantity of the groundnuts for the edible oil is going to be important. The monosaturated fat component being low in the groundnut oil also makes it a healthy medium of cooking. And since its taste is acceptable almost across India, and therefore the possibility of marketing this oil is very, very high. As I said in the beginning itself, how do we achieve this? In India, this is a difficult task. Why I am saying difficult task? That unless we create a right kind of balance, the pressure on policymaker is going to be continuous. The balance between the interest of industry, farmer, and consumer has to be right. And if there is an imbalance in any of this component, life of policymakers becomes very difficult. You have seen that the edible oil prices, as you said, blessing in disguise for the industry, but it has been a nightmare for the consumer. Think of an ordinary consumer whose disposable income is very little, but his basic minimum requirement of edible oil is still there. And if he is not able to spend that out of his income during Corona time, which further went down, then it becomes a very difficult challenge for the policymakers to settle. And therefore, while the industry and the farmers' interests have to be protected in order to make India Atmanirbhar, but also we have to collectively think that Indian consumer, who is also part of the same ecosystem, also deserves a better and competitive price, which is only possible, as I said, by increasing productivity and yield. Unless our productivity and yield goes up, which in groundnut we are somewhat better off, but still we are in the mid-range. We are not in the high yielding range compared to global yields. In late a couple of months, our effort collectively with agriculture, consumer affairs, and food has been that we also generate demand for edible oil to protect the vulnerable sections of society. And therefore, we undertook exercise with various state governments to encourage them and try to work out schemes to participate with them for distribution of edible oil. As Honorable Prime Minister says, not only Atmanirbharta, but also vocal for local is important, which means a particular oil which is grown locally should be promoted locally because it is in sync with the natural conditions and also the requirement of that society, which has acceptance for that taste, and health-wise also it is good for them. And therefore, our effort is then in each state, I have been personally interacting with these state governments, and response so far has been very, very good, very encouraging. Maharashtra, Karnataka, in fact, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, they all are responding, and they are prepared that they would be willing to work out a scheme along with the central government, so that the vulnerability of the weaker sections of the society could be protected. Some of these states like Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, they are already distributing edible oil through the public distribution system. But in Tamil Nadu, that distribution has been that of the palm oil. So our request to them has been, and that has been largely imported palm oil. And why don't we encourage procurement of domestically produced edible oil? But for that, our oils will also have to be competitive, so that the government budgetary system can afford them. And gradually, our dependence, as I always say, we very easily we can be self-sufficient in edible oil sector. It may take 10 to 15 years, but unless seed, which I think is central to the whole story, is looked at not only by the government research institutions, public research institutions, but also the private sector makes an investment in collaboration, and productivity and better quality seeds are introduced, which cater to Indian climatic conditions, we will not be able to achieve the goal in the desired time. I saw some of the sessions that are being organized today are very good. They are talking of rebranding of the oil. They are talking of nutritional security and contribution of the edible oil. Edible oil is extremely important. And for a country like India, our cultural and food habits are such that we use edible oil quite a lot, but still our per capita consumption is very low compared to global averages. And therefore, our collective effort on the occasion of this conference, focusing on this wonder nut, should be rededicating ourselves to making India Atmanirbhar in edible oil sector and promoting all locally grown edible oils for use in India. I'm sure industry and industry experts will come up with good ideas. Government would always be available to take suggestions from the industry, work on them, walk together, so that we are in a position to realize the goal for India collectively. Thank you very much. Permit me to leave after this inaugural session. As I said, a very sad thing has happened today morning. So once again, thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm sure we will, through conferences like this, realize the goal that we are aspiring for. Thank you very much.